you. Excellent. Well, thanks for joining today. As was introduced, we're going to be talking about how to mine real-time data. We specifically are going to talk about financial services and travel hospitality use cases today because those seem to be top of mind and relevant at the conference we have today. My name is Matthew Gray. I head up the partnership organization for Tealium globally, and I'm based in the San Francisco Bay Area. So if you want to know what Tealium is, basically our vision is to create a world where we can allow businesses to unify their data intelligently in order to engage and delight customers. This sits in the marketing side of the house. This is something that sits in the MarTech stack. So what we typically do is we try to help delight customers by delivering a product that is considered the industry standard platform for basically businesses to engage in real time to engage with their clients. So when we start to talk about the challenges that the industry is facing, a lot of people that I've met during this conference are facing similar challenges that they're trying to collect information. They're trying to build a customer 360 view. They're trying to do things to really understand customer attributes. But what they don't understand is that customer data, while we all get that it's the new battleground, it's something that's changing rapidly. And based on the risk and compliance and other types of legislation that's been passed, the browser-based data collection is at its end. And I don't know if everyone in this audience understands the impact of that, but it's pretty dramatic to think about third-party cookies will go away in the future, in the immediate future. And what that's going to lead to is a 70% drop in attribution of ad spend. It's also going to lead to a 20% drop for return on ad spend analytics. So when you think about what any brand you work with is doing, they want to put out their product in a way in which they can collect new customers, they can sell to their existing customers, and they can grow their base, right? We all get that. We want to sell more to the people we trust. We want to get more people that are like our customers, and we want to grow that. But when we look at the things that are going on that are creating impediments to that, these 4 points are creating challenges. The bottom point being a very, very specific one to AI, generative AI as well, is starting to come into play as a real credible threat to being able to be the interface between you and your actual customer. And so what we've got to do is we've got to have a strategy around that, because over time, people are going to spend less. They're going to spend less on ad spend. They're going to spend less overall to get to their end customer. And when we think about financial services companies, and we look at what they're trying to accomplish, most retail banks are trying to increase share of wallet. They're trying to get a better handle of what the customer's doing and how they're doing it. So what do they say they need to do? They want to do unified customer data. This is something I've heard and overheard. The customer 360, omni-channel view of the customer, those types of things are commonly overused, and they're very difficult to realize because integrating data across all the different silos is an extremely complicated challenge in a heavily regulated industry like financial services. If you start to layer in some of the things like personalization at scale and in-the-moment marketing, if I'm in the United States and I'm running a campaign, for example, I have to manage the consumer's location, their consent preferences, and what they have opted into and opted out of. If I don't have that information, I can't actually knowingly market to them and know that I'm doing it in a compliant way. So we look at this challenge of how do I get the right message to the right person at the right time? This is a really complicated problem. And when we see within the financial services sector, we see that improved segmentation and targeting makes a difference. And so if you think about selling a retail banking product, like a credit card, if I have my audiences and I know who I'm selling to, I have an easier way to send the right message and the right offer to someone that most likely will gravitate towards that and purchase it. Most banks start with a few dozen audiences they market to. And they don't realize in today's world you need several hundred. You've got to be able to know exactly what that customer is doing in the moment to be able to take advantage of it. And I think a lot of people have been victim to, I was on a website, I was looking at something, I loaded my cart, and then I went away. And I got a better offer from someone else, and I went forward with that. So the brand you were originally looking to interact with and purchase from missed that opportunity. And AWS, parent company, Amazon, is by far the best at single transaction cycle purchases. I think I'm guilty of this where I go on Amazon on the app and I purchase before I leave the app. I usually don't think about the purchase and come back to the app later. Most retailers, most banks, most travel companies want you to do the same thing with their sites, their apps, their products. Because if they can do that, they know that they've given you the right information at the right time, and it's compelled you to convert. So some of these other types of things we hear that are very overused are things like omni-channel activation. And I don't know if most people know what that is, but your in-the-moment marketing matters. So when you think about if you're scrolling through Facebook, if you're scrolling through Instagram, or if you're going into Snapchat, where did that ad come from? Why am I seeing it? This is a big area of investment for a lot of companies to be able to understand how do they market to and put the ad in the right place at the right time. And whenever we look at how AWS can collect information, what we see is to be able to activate on that information is very difficult. So large financial institutions need to be able to know, how do I send the right message for the impression in a Facebook? How do I send the right email? How do I fire off the right things to change the website in real time? I need to be able to do all of that in the moment. And these are challenges that are very, very critically affecting the ability to grow a share of wallet, to increase your spend per customer. And the right message at the right time wins. And I think everyone in the room knows that a great experience with whatever institution you're working with is meaningful. It's meaningful enough you tell other people about it. But growing share of wallet is what the brand wants to do. They want to be able to have you have more products. And if they could do all of this in real time, that's kind of that nirvana, if they can do it. Well, if I think about travel and hospitality, in the moment is different. In the moment is a challenge that is also very complicated, but it's slightly got a different bit of an edge on it. So I'm sure pretty much everyone here flew in, just by show of hands. All right. You all bought airline tickets. How many of you bought the airline ticket to come here from the website that the airline had? There you go. How many of you bought it on like an Expedia or some sort of travel exchange? So you think about the way that you go to and purchase something, it really is a very complicated type of problem to resolve in the airline industry alone. If I go to a website, I configure a flight, and then I abandon it, that costs the airline money because you were there, you may rebook, you may go somewhere else. So what they want to do is they want to be able to understand very quickly, who are you when you come to the site, when you're on the app or you're doing something in transition. And I don't know, out of the folks in the room, how many have used the United mobile app recently, and they've noticed when you do a flight search, all of a sudden everything changes. That picture of the destination you were looking at is now the background for your home screen. You get an email within the same day saying, are you interested in completing that purchase? Are you about to initiate this? These are very complicated things for them to figure out at scale, because they're not marketing to you. They're looking at the data and the patterns and figuring out how to serve you the right information at the right time. So it's a very complicated problem, and it's not just a data problem. It's how do you activate? What do you do? And when we see these different types of challenges, they really revolve around that in-the-moment marketing and messaging. So there's got to be a solution for this. There has to be a better way to go at this. And what we see a lot with our clients that are using Amazon is with the different services, with the new products that were just announced like Q, the things that are there with SageMaker, with Bedrock, with traditional services like Redshift, S3, Dynamo. You have a lot of different ways to store this information that sits and owns the data about what my loyal customers are doing, how they engage, what they do specifically with me. But the challenge really exists is how do you move that information in a way that serves it up to the right audience at the right time? Because if I get an email a week from now about the flight I was about to purchase, it's at the wrong time because I've already probably purchased it. I've already probably made the hotel booking. I've probably already gone through and completed that conversion activity. So what we see is that we look at this enormous problem of data collection at scale, data enrichment, data activation and delivery, and measurement as a way to evaluate the health of how you're engaging your customers. And when we think about what real-time means and what real-time does, it's absolutely critical in today's world to be able to communicate with your customer in real time, in near real time. And in order to do that, you have to be able to do all of these different pieces. You have to collect, enrich, and activate at scale. So what we see is that AWS does not have services that can provide this today. So they look to their partner ecosystem to be able to help out. Tealium is the market leader in being able to provide what's called customer data platform. And what we do is we work with the largest financial institutions, the largest pharmaceutical companies, the largest travel and hospitality companies in the world to help them solve these challenges. But we also are built on and only run on AWS. We're one of the ISV AX partners. We've been in the program for a few years, and we have achieved several competencies along with some of the announcements this week. But we do see that we are available on Marketplace. We are a capability that is built on and run with AWS, and we have the depth of integration to connect with about 1,500 different sources of data and targets, which allows you complete flexibility to be able to move the data in the supply chain in real time. And when we look at the things that we say about real time and we look at those capabilities and services, to be able to connect, enrich, and activate is what we often talk about. And at scale, whenever we think about that data pipeline and how the data is flowing, it allows a brand to be able to leverage services like Kinesis and Firehose and Pinpoint to be able to use the information to send SMS text messages, to be able to do things to activate and engage customers in a different way. And some of our very large customers that are using this are seeing that they can not only capture data and take the time that it used to take to be able to do this from days down to minutes, but they are also able to serve it up in a way that goes from a few dozen types of audiences to several hundred. And at the end of the day, that translates to more sales, translates to more acquisitions of customers, and greater share of wallet. And so when we look at some of the specifics around how this type of capability can really help, we see that in the banking world, we look at a couple of different things. One is the number of people that are using mobile apps to be able to do their banking versus the web, versus going into an actual store or a location. The store location has pretty much diminished. The mobile is not used nearly as much as it used to be, and the mobile dominates. So most of your consumers prefer to have a best in-class experience through that mobile app. And when you look at the ability to give and enable the audience with the appropriate information, you can see the results turn into better customer engagement. Better customer engagement typically translates into more leads. And I don't know how many of the folks in this room have clicked on an ad, and then the first thing the brand wants you to do is enter your email address. And I often hear about this, like, you don't know anything about me, yet you want my information. It's a little weird, right? You want to be able to understand how to make the experience more personalized. So what we see is by having a better app experience, by having a better mobile experience, by knowing the customer and knowing what's needed, we see that those types of things help us delight the customer, which in turn allows that customer to purchase. They convert. Same thing with in the travel and hospitality industry. It's very interesting to think about the area of airline travel, where I go on and I look for possible flight combinations. I look at what I need to get myself from a destination to another destination. And when I look at that pattern, a lot of times I purchase for business, and then I have other trips I take for personal. But when I look at the way in which I engage with an airline or a brand, I need to be as efficient as possible. And so I go to just a couple of providers for that, because I don't really need to go around and see different things. But for them, they look at this in a couple of basic terms. One is, what's my cost per booking? How much did it cost me to get the customer to book the ticket to get in the seat? When I look at the ads that I'm placing and where I'm spending my money, I'm either spending it in Meta, I'm going to spend it in Google, I'm going to spend it in TikTok. I'm going to put those ads out there, and they're not free. So I have to look at who am I sending that to and how effective is the response. How effective is the conversion? Conversion is the way you measure that response. Because if people just see an ad and they scroll by it, doesn't really mean anything. So by combining the great assets you have built with AWS with a layer like Tealium that can sit over it, we can take that data that you've been mining and built these audiences, built all this great deep data understanding about what your customers are doing, and expose it in real time to help those customers that are engaging with the brand convert. And we also see that our ability to show better conversion rates and uplift is translated into a more economical engagement, better ad spend, lower costs for engagement with clients, better share of wallet, and then also another thing would be better suppression. I don't know how many people in the room are familiar with what suppression is, but once you've bought something, you don't need to be marketed to about buying it again. So what we see is that within AWS, a lot of times the teams that are here and that are attending this amazing conference are often tasked with building out a unified view of the customer, a unified view of the behaviors of individuals, looking at lifetime values, looking at propensities, and trying to be able to determine what to offer. What we find is the partnership between AWS and Tealium is that we can help bring that data to life. We can help that data become something that's an actionable asset instead of something that is more of an intellectual asset. And we work together in hundreds of brands around the world today to be able to delight and enrich data to drive customer experiences. So if you're interested in learning more, we got a minute or two for questions, but I would encourage you to stop by our booth. We're located in the infrastructure zone, and we're in the marketplace section of the infrastructure zone. But again, my name is Matthew Gray, head up the Global Partnerships Organization for Tealium, and it's a pleasure to be able to talk with you today.